Good morning everyone, Ranger Toby here. I think most people will be joining us in the next few minutes. I'm really glad to be able to bring you along with me on this weekly stroll. So we're just up the top of New Hill at the moment, so Scrabo Tower and Newton Ards are over there. The wee Shepherd's Hutch down the lane there. There's Strangford Lock, Anne's Point out to the left, and the lane up to the Temple of the Winds just up the top. We're going to save a stroll up to the Temple of the Winds and our brackish marsh. I think it will be not next week but the week after will be one of the next live streams. But for today we're going to be taking a stroll around the New Hill Loop, which is also called the Yellow Trail. And for those of you who are watching with your kids and regular visitors, of course the Natural Play is up there, our Magic Ink Pot Natural Play. So we'll get going in a moment, but do please ask your questions on the way round. I've got a few questions preloaded from a couple of people on the teaser posts that we put out earlier in the week, and we'll see what we see. I'll pick out a few bits and pieces to talk about, and we'll go from there. It's just quite nice, even just on the lane verges here. All the lesser celandine is all slightly dull day, so they're all a little closed up, but carpets and carpets of all the celandine, looking great. Some of the nettles are coming up too. New Hill's particularly good for these big old holly trees. Actually quite high, maybe about 10 meters high, some of these holly trees. They host the holly blue butterfly, which has started to naturalise across the whole of the east coast of the island of Ireland. Actually, they're doing very well. Quite often see them here flittering and fluttering around the top of the bushes, probably in the next few weeks actually. So I'll have to make sure I keep an eye out for those on some of the sunny days. So we'll get going up the trail, and once again, please do ask your questions. I'll be able to see the comments as they come on up. And if there's anything else as well you want to ask for future live streams, I'll do what I can. There's only so much 4G signal around the estate, and I've got a few places lined up where I know I'm going to get good signal. And I'm sure we'll probably return to the red squirrel hide at some point as well. We'll take a little look out into the temple field because it's such a fantastic view, even on a cloudy day like this. I've got a few things I can talk about actually, not from this point here, it's not quite as good a view, but we'll stop off at another one in the future. This field is the temple field. It's going back into spring barley shortly, so there's the manure ready to spread out, and it will be sown maybe even this week, possibly next. And you've got Patterson's Hill in the back, that's Cummins Hill. There's the glen with the little folly building. If anyone's seen any of the previous live streams, and we've got the wee stream going through there as well. Then you've got Bell's Bank, which comes around the edge of New Hill, and then there's Bell's Tank, which has a tank on it, which is why it's called Bell's Tank. So New Hill is one of the original woodlands. It's still got most of its original trees on it. They're these big sort of 200+ year old beech trees, kind of like the Glen Woodlands. Fantastic trees, but they're very much coming to end of life now. They're slowly on their decline, as it were. You can see lots of sort of fissures around them. They've got these big buttresses supporting them, but the centre of the trees aren't looking too hot at the moment. But they do become amazing sort of fungi and saprophytic insects. So these are insects that feed on dead wood, and when they do come down, you get these amazing deadwood stumps with all the various fungi. There's some big bracket fungus, probably Ganoderma. and they'll still be a source of life for so many things for a fair few decades, big chunks of wood like that. So Becky asks, how are the tenant farmers coping? It's almost, dare I say it, business as usual for them to a point. I mean, farmers work in a lot of isolation anyway, so things have sort of been going okay. But I suppose some of the farmers have got maybe there's a sort of supply and demand issues as our consumers have sort of changed their needs over the last few weeks. That's why I always encourage you, buy local. If you've got a farmer down the road who has an outlet, or you can buy direct from them, do it. Definitely. I've just spent the last 5 days actually out with one of our neighbouring farms here, helping them lamb. So I'm a little tired, a little hoarse in the throat. Thankfully, it's not anything infectious. But all the sort of the barn and the lambs and long days, but it's really great doing that sort of thing. If anybody ever gets the chance to go lambing, do it. It's fantastically rewarding, and if anyone's seen any of the videos, can't beat some cute little lambs. Some lovely bunches of primrose out already. Take a nice close up of these. Aren't they lovely? So everything's really starting to get along now. There's honeysuckle starting to come into leaf. The flowers won't be far behind. Again, more of these big old beech trees. So you should be able to hear the woodland birds. I'll be quiet for a little bit. Lots going on. So keep those questions coming in. I'm walking up through an area here where we've been clearing just small parts of rhododendron. Thankfully there wasn't huge amounts here, which I just passed a bit down there. And this area up through here, sycamore's become quite dominant. And we did a lot of sapling clearance of that, and we've restocked it with various native broadleafs. That was back in, I think it was winter 2015-16, if I remember right. Bluebells well on their way up. Fantastic old veteran stumps of these beech trees. They're still alive. Big old stumps. In fact, there's one of our tenants now. He is rolling the fields. So some of the pasture fields, they get a bit divoted over the winter grazing, and they just get rolled down just to flatten out the divots. That helps the grass grow a bit better. See him heading off there. We couldn't do what we do from our nature point of view without our tenant farmers. It's really important that we have farmers with us on our land. They help us get the grazing regimes right. They help us farm for nature. Yeah, really important. And of course they run in the business too. Meet somewhere in the middle. I think the big thing with all of this is if we can hope that consumers change their buying habits and source local, source sustainably. It's always the best thing to do. Now this is one of my favourite places on the estate that really is the epitome of this designed vista that the estate was planted out for. So we have all of the drumlins. So this is post-glacial landscape. Big ice sheets were all here. As they melted, they dropped all their sediment and ground up stuff, and you have all these domes and it's called drumlins. And all of the drumlins on the estate here, apart from Bell's Tank, have woodlands planted across them with these lovely terrace paths, and they kiss the edges of the woodlands just at these key locations where you get these amazing vistas looking out there, and you can even see down to the lock just over there. Fantastic. And this is really exactly what it is. Here comes here comes Alan now. So you've got, if anybody watched the video I was talking about in the glen with the folly, this is one of those locations where actually it was a view looking onto the folly in there. You would have seen it framed by the woodland and equally been able to look back out again. It's a fantastic view here up on New Hill. So Alison Kennedy asks, what are the tenant farmers producing these days? Well, here at Mount Stewart, we're a mixed farm. So it's there's a lot of arable here. So we have spring and winter barley. We've only got I think it's one field of winter barley this year, so that was sown in autumn. And then these fields here are going into spring barley and a couple of others. And then we've got obviously pasture. Some of it's for grazing all year round. Some of it is cut for silage as well. We do have within the arable, the barley, we quite often sow with legumes, so they get sown with like a fodder bean, and that helps fix nitrogen back into the soil as well. It means we can reduce our inputs, so there's less need for any additional fertilizers going into the ground. So we just have hard manures going in, and a small amount of pelleted nitrogen goes in. We don't have any slurry going onto any of the land here at Mount Stewart. And they will run, so two of our tenants run a small beef herd, and that's Herefords, and he's moving his herd across to Shorthorns at the moment. So they're a slightly smaller breed, a bit lighter on the ground, produced a really nice tasty beef though. And we have we have one other tenant who takes a couple of fields for his dairy heifers. So these are the first year ones, so they're a bit smaller before they get extra big, so that the ground here can take them when they're a little younger, and then they go off to his other fields. But we're certainly in a period of change at the moment with our farming. It used to be that there was heavy potato cropping here, not so great for the soil. Cummings Hill just over here was in potatoes for, I think it was even 5 years running. There's this amazing thing that holds soil together in winter, and it's called roots. And of course, when you harvest your potato crop, there's nothing left in the soil afterwards, and so a lot of it ends up running off. So putting things like that, bare soil in winter on slopes, it just runs off, you're losing all your soil. So we're just working our way back into some better rotations here now that we care for the whole estate. Any idea what the oldest tree on the estate is? So, now I'm assuming that might be Hannah, maybe, who's asking, because you're posting from the Mount Stewart account. It's hard to say. I would hazard a guess that some of the original trees from the very first plantings, most of those have gone now, but there are some sort of pretty suspect looking ones. I would say be close to 400 years old. There's a couple of oaks hidden away on the estate. It's hard to tell. I mean, there's lots of stumps around the property that we do ring counts on. Hard to do a ring count on that one. But every tree that comes down, we always do a ring count, and it goes into our ancient trees index just to get an idea where things are. There's definitely some that predate Mount Stewart as we know it today, the designed landscape. So I was talking earlier on about some of the restocking we've done in our woodlands. So there's some of these that went in. This is quite an open area, they're still tubed. We have a lot of rabbits here that like to nibble on stuff, so we've got some bird cherry. There's some birch just starting to swell the buds. What else we got? That birch didn't make it by the looks of it. Yeah, that's one to replace. Some beech, of course. But the bird cherry is well on its way, look. There's another one there. We've got some more beech, there's some oak. What else went in here? Hazel went in here. Scots pine. There's some crabapple in here as well somewhere. There's a bit of hazel over there. Oh, that one's a hazel. Look at all this honeysuckle. It's fantastic. Tara asked, did you lose many trees in the storms this year? Well, we hardly had any storms. I assume you mean 2019. Yeah, there were hardly any storms. The ones that we don't tend to get ones that cause huge amounts of sort of damage, as it were. But the August storms are the ones that that probably brought a few bits and pieces down. That's mainly because the trees are in full leaf. So, you know, these big broadleaf trees are what, 70, 80 foot tall, good 30, 40 meters. And, you know, they can get that big because they shed their leaves in winter, and reduces their wind sail effect when the winds are generally stronger. So if you get a storm coming through in the summer when they're in full leaf, so they're catching all that wind, and it puts really big strain on their limbs. And when you have quite a lot of sort of over mature, close grown trees like here on New Hill, what happens is you get, see, like this beech tree here, the unions of the tree, as I excuse their fingers, the unions of the trees are very close together. So what happens is they just tear, and they'll actually split away. So compare that to, I'm looking around here to find a good union. Yeah, that's a good example. So compare that to this branch here. Good, really nice right angle 90-degree branch, really strong. It's plumbed, the grain of the tree runs parallel to each other. So it's a really secure limb. Whereas those ones that are very close together, like those, they can sort of split very easily. So it all depends on the wind direction as well. Mount Stewart, you know, it's right on the edge of the lock here. Our prevailing wind would be sort of southwestish. Anything coming through from south to northwest and even a bit north, even if it's a really strong wind, they can take that because they've kind of grown up with that wind direction. But when we get the winds coming from anything on the east direction, so this is east here, it's an unusual wind direction, and that's the one that tends to do the damage. So just thinking back, was it Storm Eleanor and Storm Desmond, was it? I think it was something around, is it 2018 or 2017 maybe? I can't remember when they were now. They were the ones that did a lot of damage here on the estate. We had to close for a few days while we kind of got everything cleared and secured and made safe again. Gavin Shipley asks, what is your approach to ivy on trees? And I appreciate there's an argument for and against yes. So ivy, I suppose the general common misconception is that it strangles trees. That's not true. Basically, ivy's native species, fantastic species for pollinators, for bats, for moths, for insects in general. So there you go, actually quite convenient here. Okay, so we've got 3 trees, ivy's going up their stems, just coming into the crown there, a little bit in the crown on that one. So basically you've got, it's the last flowering flower on the calendar. So it flowers around sort of late September, October. Let's go up because this has still actually got the berries on it. And those berries then ripen. They're the first food source on the calendar year as well. So these are all just ripening off now. So really important food source at a very lean time of year right now between winter and spring. And of course you get birds nesting in all the branches here, and then you get bats roosting in summer, and of course all those insects are then fed on by other things too. So what's the policy on it? Well, we let it do its thing in the woodland really. There's only 3 reasons we would remove ivy from trees. One is pure vanity, and that's in the gardens. So it's more of a presentation side of things, and I think this is where that sort of conversation around ivy being untidy, and I hate using that word, but I think that's where that one comes from. The second one is for our tree safety management. So depending on where it is, so very high and high use areas. So a high use area for us, for example, would be the natural play area around some of our tenanted buildings and around some of our significant buildings. So I can't say that I have been able to fully inspect that tree if I can't see all of the tree, if it's covered up by ivy. So we would remove on those trees that have those high inspections. The other and final reason would be on an individual by individual tree basis. So I was talking about the whole winter wind sail effect. That obviously can be exacerbated if your crown of your tree has a full crown of ivy right the way up on top of it. So even though you drop your leaves in winter, you've still effectively got a load of leaves there because the ivy's on it. And we might want to retain an individual specimen or help it in its older age. So that would be the final reason why we would ever cut ivy off a tree, just to retain an individual. Okay. Anna says, what do you look for when doing tree sex? And how do you know if they are healthy? Lots of training and experience. There's lots of indications. Now, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Here's a really good example. So this big old beech tree just here, it is in rude health apart from, see that little sort of weeping bleed there? So that's the first signs of some internal decay in that tree. So it's a type of sort of, well, it's one of the fungal bleeds basically. So when it comes to the next year's inspections, and I've logged this already, it's not significant enough yet to warrant any action. But what we do is we basically look at every part of the tree. We'll look at its roots, the root plate around it, the strength of these buttresses. Are there any decay? Are there any big cavities? So we'll probe these cavities for looking for any soft spots. We'll have a rubber mallet and we will bang the tree, and we're listening for sort of sounds for any decay in there. So it sort of actually sounds hollow, and you can tell the difference between solid wood and sort of soft wood or decaying wood. And then we go working our way up the tree, looking out for any sort of weeping unions, any fungi showing anywhere, any tears or any stress fractures up the tree. And then finally we're starting to look at the upper crown in summer and in autumn, looking at its overall condition. So if we're starting to see the crown sort of, growth looking a bit iffy, maybe it's not coming into true leaf, or perhaps you've got a little bit of dieback on one tree branch, then we know that there's an issue with that union in that tree. So that's just where the branches come together. But this guy is fantastic. Now, a really good comparison, and I'm just going to sort of nip off down here, where a tree is in full-blown decline, like we would call it. But of course, it's far enough away from the play area here as a new sort of high-use area. But we'll just go down here and have a quick look. I'll see a few other questions coming in. I'll answer those in a moment. So these big old beech trees here, they're more than a tree and a half length away from our usage zone area, which is why they're let to do what they want to do. And they're in full decline. So when you start looking closely at some of these trees, not only are those unions sort of quite close together, you see a lot of the trees have failed around the area, so they're a bit more vulnerable than they would have been before. But you're starting to get quite a lot of decay. So I was talking about the ivy covering trees that I would normally do full inspections on to hide things. There's a really good example here. So you look, just hidden in there is a huge Ganoderma bracket fungus up this whole branch here. So and when you start looking a little closer, you've got some cavities, so water ingress into the central unions of these trees. And so you're going to start getting weakness around where all these branches come together, and that can also lead to these tearing away in sort of storm or even sort of very low wind events. Okay, but again, well away from any of our usage areas. So natural plays 3.5 length down there. The trail is right the way down there. We're going to let this guy go well into its own vitrin age. In fact, it's already lost a limb here anyway. And yeah, things will be nesting and feeding away in there. So yeah, lots of things to look at. And that's only a little snapshot. There's all sorts of other things to think about. Different tree species act and behave in different ways, which can be a little bit of a headache sometimes when you need to start sort of thinking about, okay, well, beech trees they suffer from these particular funguses, whereas that fungus wouldn't impact an oak, for example. But yeah, that's why every tree is looked at individually in our high and very high use areas. So Lewis asks, are there many birds' nests? I've seen loads of bird building, nest building activity at the moment. They're very, very busy, and yeah, ivy is a fantastic place for a lot of birds to nest in. Lots of little sort of branches and sort of little hollows for them to work away in. And of course the cavities in those trees as well are used by birds. So blue tits and great tits, they quite like nesting in small cavities in trees. And all the way up to, see, some of our owl species, they like big old cavities in trees. And that's probably what's missing the most from their habitats nowadays, is nesting and breeding habitat, especially barn owls. Shirley asks, have you heard the cuckoo at Mount Stewart this year? I haven't yet. I've been listening out. If anybody follows the BTO cuckoo project, they'll know that there are, I think they have six cuckoos that have satellite tracking tags, and it tracks their migration all the way from Northern Africa all the way up into Northern and Central Europe and the UK. And I believe they're pretty much all sort of sitting around, I think last time I looked, some of them have reached the UK already. The rest of them I think are still somewhere in Spain and France, but don't quote me on that. I haven't looked for a little while. But they should be about very soon up here, yeah. I think the one thing I've heard the most lately is our woodpeckers. The greater spotted woodpecker, they've been drumming away. 2 males here, and we have with 2 breeding pairs in the estate. In fact, usually see them around this area, and I'm pretty sure they're nesting down near the piggery somewhere. The ones in the south area of the state. There's 4 nest sites that I know of, and they don't always use the same one every year. Some of them will go to like sort of alternate between the 2 of them. So there's one in the gardens. There's one down here, there's 1 and 2 on the east side of the estate. So just come in to the rear side of New Hill. So we've got the piggery is just down there, Piggery Woods and the Green Trail, Moatwood, the East Screen behind Girvan's Ground, Bell's Hill, Bell's Tank, in fact you can just make out the tank there, Bell's Bank, New Hill, and the Glen Woodlands. And New Hill, especially the rear side of New Hill, is a fantastic bluebell woodland. So all that greenery, big bright, these are all big patches of bluebells, which are all starting to recover now. We've cleared a lot of the rhododendron ponticum from this area, which is where we're coming up to. So where you see all these kind of bald areas, that's where all the rhododendron was that we cleared. We've been clearing it since 2015. I'll have a few little clip videos coming out again over the next week or 2 that talk about the invasive species plant management we're doing here. So we've cleared about 11 or so hectares of rhododendron, laurel, snowberry. We were able to do some of it mechanically, but much of it is done by hand, which is why we're always very grateful to our volunteer teams to give us that support, and corporate groups as well come in for their sort of jollies away from the office. So thank you all to those who come along. And if anybody's watching who's been on one of those, let us know. How are you doing? So looking down there's the link path that goes down to the piggery there. And you can actually see all this yellow here. That's all celandine in flower down there, amongst the bluebell. There's loads. I'll move on down. I might even sit down here for a little bit actually. So much talking, I'm almost out of breath. In fact, can you see the sort of new fresh earth down there? That's one of our biggest badger sets just down there. if anybody watched the home ground live that we had here last year, that was the one we had the cameras on. They didn't come out for the segment, but I think they just poked their head out, if I remember right, live. We've obviously recorded footage in advance. We have these great little trail cams that we put out to capture the footage, but there should be cubs by now, and they will be moved from sort of set to set sometimes. So we have this main set here, and there's two annex, kind of granny annexes in the woodlands here as well. Alan asks, is there any wild garlic up yet? Oh yes, yep, I've already been picking a little bit for my salads. Wild garlic's well on its way. Everything is coming up early this year, so we're just at the end of March now, and those bluebells look like they're not far off starting to throw up a flower head. So I'd say we're maybe 2, maybe even 3 weeks ahead of, say, last year and sort of the average. Mel asks, caught any good animals on cameras lately? I suppose the highlight of this winter's trail cameras was the pine martens. Seeing them out and about was fantastic. We've had, every now and then we see the long-eared owl. It will sort of sit on a branch, so we usually have these cameras looking at our little monitoring stations, which I'll be talking about on, I think that's next week's live stream. We'll be going out to our red squirrel monitoring stations and sort of doing a little fill with me around the old piggery woods, which are the nice bit of ancient woodland sort of just behind this area here. So we'll talk more about that at a later date. But yeah, the long-eared owls at night time, they'll sort of sit on top of these feed stations looking for the small rodents underneath, and they'll basically just drop down on top of them. So the long-eared owls are a woodland owl species. They spend most of their time in woodland, but they roost together in winter. We know we've got at least one pair here, possibly more, but they're quite elusive, and I'm hoping to be able to source a thermal imaging camera that we can do some night surveys to see if we can spot them, and same during the day as well, spot them roosting. The barn owls are doing well. Both our boxes have got roosting juveniles from last year in it, and the local breeding pair, I believe, have started sitting on eggs already, if I remember right. Keep those questions coming in. So we're just heading round to the north side of New Hill now. Now this is mostly sycamore dominant. You can see actually the sycamore is already halfway into leaf. You compare that with the likes of the beech, which hasn't even popped a leaf yet. You can see how sycamore can be sort of a bit of a bully and quite dominant within the woodlands here. It's not a native species to the island of Ireland, and we would be actively managing it. So we've actually started to, if you can see the wee timber stacks down there. So bit by bit we work through areas. Don't want to open up too much at once, because then we expose the other trees around them to sort of wind all of a sudden. And we're thinning out the sycamore bit by bit to favour some natural regeneration from our native species. And I know before anyone says, I know beech isn't native to the island of Ireland, but it's very much a character tree here within the domain. So we do plant beech as well. Here's all the foxgloves coming up. So again, this was all rhododendron, about sort of 20-foot high rhododendron, not a single thing living underneath it, barely any insects as well. So when we initially clear, you get this big flush. So this is an area we cleared more recently. Foxgloves will be coming up soon. And we're just heading towards, see where all this bramble is? That was 4 years ago, so that was our 2015-16 clearance. And there are lots of tree saplings under there as well. We came back in and restocked the area just to sort of speed things up a little bit. But this amazing mash of brambles, and this stuff here, this is all wild raspberry. So the brambles are the darker leaves. So definitely going to have to come back here in summer when the raspberry's fruiting. So yeah, this area, I have already filmed a few sort of clip sequences for like specifically talking about the invasive plant species management. So I'll go into a little bit more detail in those, and sort of field some questions when those ones come out as the future Mount Stewart moments. But you can get an idea here of this glade. There's little to no mature tree cover at all here. It's been lost because there hasn't been any regeneration of the woodland with the rhododendron that was here previously. But we have planted through here, and the trees are here, but you've also got these amazing roseberry willow herb coming up. I know a lot of people sort of think this is a weed. They grow about sort of 5 or 6 foot tall. Lovely sort of small pinky mauve to purple flower. About the same height as foxgloves. Again, super amazing nectar rich plant. Lots of insects like it. And the elephant hawk moth, its caterpillars feed on the roseberry willow herb. So the elephant hawk moths are the big, beautiful, almost like sort of neon 80s pink and yellow moth. They're quite impressive, and the caterpillars are about as sort of thick as your little finger, maybe even the next finger up actually, some of them sometimes. They look quite impressive. But I'm sure I'll be doing a couple of clips, clip Mount Stewart moments on moth trapping and how we monitor the species of moths here. So actually here you can see where we've restocked this area with some red squirrel favoured trees. So we've got a little bit of Sitka and Norway spruce here, and there's some Douglas fir. There's a whole bank of Scots pine just up here, and that backs on to broadleafs that we've restocked the top with. So just these small little patches. Gavin says, I think there's recent evidence that beech may have made its own way after all. Yes, I was reading up on that. Did you also see the they've genetically tested the Scots pines that are over near the Burren, and they're proving that it's its own unique genetic strain, unique to the island of Ireland. So maybe we should call them Irish pines, maybe? I don't know. I don't want to go down that route. Maybe that's a dodgy route to go down. So much wild raspberry here. In fact, just to get an idea, 4 years on and 4 years of treatment, we still have some of the rhododendron ponticum resprouting and regrowing here. So I have to make sure we always have these monitoring follow-ups for years afterwards, just to nip it in the bud. It can quite easily get going again. But I'm really pleased with the sapling growth here. 4 years in, they got planted there in 2016, and that was the year that we ended up having like a 2 or 3 month drought, and a lot of the saplings unfortunately died. So we did do a bit of restocking, but the ones that are in the woodland, sort of mixed woodland cover here, they did all right. They did all right. Hi Julian. Julian says she's late to the party. It's alright, at least you can watch again if you want. So I'm almost walked past this chap here. Lovely big old veteran beech tree. See, it's lost a limb. You know, I was talking earlier on about how those unions of the trees that are very close together in the storms, they tend to split out, so they just go, and this is exactly what's happened to this limb here. So let it refocus. There we go. And there it is there. We processed the rest of it, and we used the branches just to edge and line the pathway. So whenever we do bring trees down or dismantle them from storm, we use every single bit of the tree. And so a lot of the big sort of the buttwood timber will go to timber mills. Actually quite a lot of our particularly big buttwood timber has gone to Cardew Timber just down the road. He makes these amazing slab tables and fantastic sort of lintels and mantle pieces. The union wood, sort of a lot of the wood we will leave in situ for deadwood habitat, and the crown wood, some of it will go for firewood. We season all our own firewood here, and the sort of the upper branches we'll stack a little bit for habitat, and the rest will be chipped, and we use that for path surfacing and mulching in the gardens. Julia Flower asks, hello, will you be going to let us see the gardens for all us gardeners? Oh yeah, don't worry. The gardens teams are working on how they're going to get some content out. One of the downsides is that certainly on the lake side of the house, there's virtually no phone signal to be able to do live streams. But hopefully, as the formal gardens come into growth, they're going to do a few little streams, or certainly filming some clips from the formal gardens there as well. They're certainly well ahead, but as you'd imagine, everyone's sort of reeling from the current circumstances, and we're just working out, well, what is essential work, how many people can be in at once, and you know, if there's only 1 or 2 people in, then they're going to need to be focusing on the essential tasks first. But hopefully we'll get some content too, don't worry, and if we can't do live streams, then we'll do some pre-record. Is that okay, Julia? So just coming down off of the final drop down on New Hill now. Some quite nice big old sweet chestnuts here. The bark on sweet chestnuts always quite like. So sometimes you actually see the bark on sweet chestnuts, it actually spirals up the tree. And again, sort of returning to these big banks of holly, with the holly blue butterfly will be out soon. Yeah, nice little stroll today. I say it is overcast, but it's quite warm. I think it's one of the bonuses of having the lock beside us. You know, we do get the microclimate here. I know. I was looking at the weather report yesterday, and the saying like most of the island was covered in cloud. Well, it was absolutely glorious sun all day here yesterday, pretty much. It was really nice to step out of the lambing sheds and sort of be bathed with a really nice view looking across to the lock to the Mourns. There we are, I'm actually back at the lock. So does anybody have any other questions before I sort of be finishing up soon as we come back to the shepherd's hut? Lovely, lovely big oak there. Lovely big oak. And of course, some nice young beech regenerating. We've actually got quite a lot of beech here. The closer you look, you can see some. So there's one. There's another. There's another there. And there's a sycamore sapling. See that? Already coming into leaf. Big old bully in the woodland. I think I'll get this one pulled up. There we go. Big carpet of bramble, more honeysuckle, and then you can see this is all sycamore through here, so this is another area that will be coming to sweep through. We'll just be nipping out the sycamore there, favouring the likes of these naturally regenerating beech and other tree species. Something that's been a real pleasure, he says as obviously a car goes by in the tractor, is the roads have been so much quieter, especially Portaferry Road, and it's always one of those things. It's fine when you nip into the estate over behind one of the hills, or certainly the eastern paths and trails around the estate, so quiet. Of course, Portaferry Road is always very noisy, and so it's a real nice opportunity to be able to escape from the roadside. Here's another area that we cleared of rhododendron. It's got various tree saplings. Some of them have still got their tubes on, but quite hard to see them. But there's some cherry, some beech here. We put quite a lot of Scots pine in this area, mainly because it's right next to the lock. Scots pine acts like a nursery tree for the other big broadleafs. Let's pop in and have a look at a few of them, see how they're doing. There's a cheeky bit of rhododendron to treat. Nice beech tree. Yeah, these Scots pines are doing really well. Look at them. So they're up to, let's see, they're up to almost up to my shoulder now. They're doing very well, so I'm pleased with those. Again, we had that very, very dry summer following the initial planting of these, and we did lose quite a few. But I think they're almost thinned down to about what we would thin them down to normally anyway. So that's really good. A few more bits of ponticum to remove there. You can see if you leave it even just 1 year, so that was treated this time last year. Obviously didn't get a good kill on it, and it grown up through summer, so we have to make sure that we actually drill down into the stumps of that and treat it again. Here's our lovely shepherd's hut. So who's still watching here that that knows Barry and David, who man our shepherd's hut? They're doing well as far as I know, and we do stay in touch obviously with all our team. But yeah, we'd be pleased to know that their booth is still good. It's all closed up at the moment. There we go. I think we'll finish up with a nice. Just have a look over towards Arms Point and Chapel Island. A little pan of the lock before we finish up today's stream. Hopefully I won't fall down a hole. There we go. Well, there's a balloon releases. What goes up comes back down again. Very frustrating. There we go. So here we are. I can't, tide's out. So there's Anne's Point, Chapel Island out there. So the other smaller islands, I can't remember all their names. The Strangford team know them the best, of course. In fact, you can just make out the Mourns, or mountains just there. And the old gasworks. See Scrabo is up behind there. So everybody, thank you for joining me on the little stroll today. We're going to do this every Tuesday at 11 o'clock from myself. Possibly be doing others with the other team, but we'll definitely have some form of sort of clip, either commentary or a bit of the woodlands or a bit of the gardens every day during this time, bringing Mount Stewart to you while you guys can't come to us. Again, always do please ask questions and give us extra ideas for content and what you'd like to see. And yeah, so while you can't explore the domain, we'll explore it for you in this time. So thank you everybody, and carry on, ask questions, and I'll see you for a live stream next Tuesday at 11.